The day I turned 18 wasn't a party, it was an eviction. My own parents threw me out, told me to never come back, and forced me to build a life from less than zero. For years, all I heard from them was silence. Then, one random evening, long after I'd built a life they couldn't even begin to imagine, they were standing on my doorstep. And what they wanted from me was even more shocking than the day they kicked me out. My name is Lori. I'm 26 years old. My 18th birthday started with a weird, heavy silence. No happy birthday, no presents, not even the smell of pancakes, my one birthday tradition. There was just this thick tension in the air. My parents, Joan and Richard, were at the kitchen table with the exact same grim look on their faces. Between them sat two coffees and a single crisp white envelope with my name on it. I honestly thought it was a prank. Maybe a treasure map to a new car or something. I even managed a nervous smile and said, "Morning. What's all this?" My father just pushed the envelope across the table. "Open it," he said. His voice was flat. It wasn't a suggestion. It wasn't a birthday card. It was a typed formal notice. It said that as of today, my 18th birthday, I was no longer their legal responsibility, and I had 24 hours to vacate the premises. My stomach just dropped. I kept reading the words over and over, hoping they'd change. Vacate the premises. It's what a landlord says to a tenant who won't pay, not what your parents say to you on your birthday. "What is this?" I finally choked out, my voice shaking. "It's exactly what it looks like," my mother said, her eyes totally cold. "You're an adult now. It's time to stand on your own 2 feet. We've done our part." Their part. 18 years of food and shelter, and it turned out it was all just a long-term loan they were calling in. They explained it with this chilling, detached logic. They said I was directionless, that I wasn't taking my future seriously. My grades were just okay, and I didn't have a 5-year plan like my older brother, Mark. Mark was their golden child, already in some fancy pre-law program. They kept saying this was tough love, that throwing me in the deep end would force me to swim. But it didn't feel like a lesson. It felt like a punishment for not being the perfect son they wanted. I searched their faces for any hint of doubt, any flicker of the people who raised me, but they were gone. They were just two strangers. "Where am I supposed to go?" I pleaded, panic clawing at my throat. "I have nothing." My father got up, went to the hall closet, and pulled out a duffel bag and a cheap sleeping bag. "That's for you to figure out," he said, dropping them at my feet. "We packed a few things. The rest will be donated next week if you don't get it." He then pulled two $50 bills from his wallet and laid them on the table. "This is the last thing you'll ever get from us. Don't call, don't write, don't come back. We have only one son now, and it's Mark." Those words just broke something in me. This wasn't just kicking me out, they were erasing me. My mom just nodded, her arms crossed like a fortress. I was standing there, stranger in my own home, holding $100 and a duffel bag. The silence that followed was louder than any fight we'd ever had. It was the sound of my life ending. I walked out without looking back. I knew if I did, the emptiness in their eyes would completely shatter me. The door clicked shut, and just like that, I was homeless on my 18th birthday. That first night was the coldest I've ever been, and it had nothing to do with the weather. It was a deep, soul-crushing loneliness. I crashed on my friend Dave's couch, and hearing his family laughing in the next room was just a constant, painful reminder of everything I'd lost. That $100 felt like poison in my pocket, my worth to my parents, a $100 problem they'd paid to make go away. For weeks, I was a ghost, bouncing between friends' couches, always feeling like a burden. The shame was a physical thing. Every morning, I'd wake up early, stare at the ceiling, and just wonder how my life had gotten here. My parents' tough love felt like plain cruelty. It didn't motivate me, it paralyzed me. Rock bottom hit about a month in. I'd run out of couches to crash on and spent a night in a 24-hour laundromat, pretending to wait on a load of laundry. I just watched people come and go, living their normal lives while mine was completely stuck. I was 18 and totally invisible. It was there, under those flickering fluorescent lights, that something in me finally snapped. The despair turned into this cold, hard anger. Anger at my parents, sure, but also at myself for believing them when they decided I was worthless. If I didn't prove them wrong, they'd be right. And that thought scared me more than anything. That was the turning point. The next morning, I used my last few dollars on a coffee and a newspaper and circled every single now hiring ad. My first job was washing dishes at a greasy spoon diner. It was awful, thankless work. My hands were always raw and I constantly smelled like old grease. But with my first real paycheck, I didn't buy a video game. I rented a tiny windowless room in a boarding house. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I could close my own door. That little win fueled me. I decided I wasn't just going to survive. I was going to build a life so successful that they would be nothing but a footnote. The next few years were a total blur of brutal work. I kept the dishwashing job at night and took a second job in construction during the day. My body ached all the time. I lived on instant noodles and gas station coffee. No parties, no dates, nothing. Every dollar and every hour went into building my future. I enrolled in community college taking night classes in business. I'd show up straight from the construction site, covered in dust, and sit in the back so I wouldn't bother anyone. I was exhausted, but I was also running on pure, furious energy. Every A on a test felt like a little victory. After 2 years, I had a degree and a little bit of savings. I quit both jobs and got an entry-level position at a logistics company. It was still grunt work, but it was a desk job. I was a sponge. I stayed late, asked a million questions, and took on the projects no one else wanted. I studied supply chain management on my own time, getting certifications online. Slowly but surely, things started to change. I got a promotion, then another. The tiny room became a small apartment. Instant noodles became real groceries. 6 years after getting kicked out with $100, I was a senior logistics manager at a major corporation. I had a team, a good salary, and I had just put a down payment on my first house. It was a modest two-story place, but it was at mine. The day I got the keys, I walked through the empty rooms and just broke down crying. I had actually done it. I had proven them wrong. And this is where the story takes a sharp turn. If you're getting into this, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps and lets me know you want to hear more stories like this. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss what happens next. It was a Tuesday evening, almost exactly 10 years after I'd been kicked out. I was in my kitchen, the one I was so damn proud of, making dinner. Life was good. It was stable and peaceful. Then the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I went to the door, looked through the peephole, and my heart just stopped. I couldn't breathe for a second. Standing on my porch, looking older, tired, and a lot smaller than I remembered, were my parents. A decade of total silence, and there they were. It felt completely surreal. I could have just pretended I wasn't home. But some small part of me needed to see how this played out. I took a breath and opened the door. They looked stunned to see me, or maybe the man I'd become. They stared at me, then passed me into the warm light of my house. My mother, Joan, was the first to speak. "Hello," she said, her voice thin, as if we'd seen each other last week. "Joan, Richard," I replied. My voice was steady, giving nothing away. Using their first names was like putting up a shield. "Can we Come in? My father asked, shuffling his feet. I hesitated, then stepped back. This was my house, my rules. They walked in, gawking at my living room, at the furniture, the art on the walls, the life I had built. I didn't offer them a seat. I just waited. You've done well for yourself, my father said. Was that pride in his voice, or was it something else? I have, I said simply. And then they got to the real reason they were there. It wasn't for an apology. It wasn't to say they were wrong. It was a demand, uh, dressed up to sound like family duty. We need your help, my mother blurted out, her composure finally cracking. Your brother, Mark, he made some bad investments. He lost everything. The bank is foreclosing on their house. Mark, the golden child, the one they'd poured everything into, the reason I was disposable. I quickly learned that my father had co-signed Mark's loans, and with Mark's business now in ruins, the bank was coming for my parents' house too. They were about to lose it all. He has 2 kids, my mother added, her voice shaky with what sounded like manufactured panic. Your nephews, they'll have nowhere to live. We'll have nowhere to live. I just listened, my face unreadable. 10 years. Not a single call to see if I was alive or dead. They had erased me, but the second their perfect world started to crumble, they showed up on my doorstep expecting me to be their safety net. They didn't sound sorry, they sounded entitled. We need you to help, my father said, his voice getting firmer, like he was still in charge. Co-sign a new loan for us. With your income, it'll get approved, or you could just give us the money. It's the least you can do. We are your family. The least I can do. That phrase just echoed in the room. A wave of ice-cold clarity washed over me. I looked at these 2 people who had thrown me out like trash. They didn't come here to reconnect. They came because their first investment went bad, and now they wanted to cash in on the one they'd thrown away. I finally spoke, my voice dangerously calm. Let me get this straight. 10 years ago, you threw me out with $100 and told me to never come back. You said I wasn't your son anymore, but now that your real son failed and you're about to lose everything, you show up here and demand that I fix it. You demand I hand over the life I built from nothing, a life I had to build because you abandoned me. They just stared, stunned. The answer is no. That one word just hung in the air between us, absolute and final. My mother started to cry, these fake self-pitying sobs. How can you be so cruel? We're your parents. You stopped being my parents the day you chose a favorite and threw away the spare, I said, my voice never rising. You taught me a valuable lesson that day, self-reliance. You told me to stand on my own 2 feet. Well, here I am, standing, and you are not welcome to lean on me. My father's face went beet red. After everything we did for you for 18 years, you did what the law required, I cut him off. And you put a price on it, $100. You made it clear our relationship was a transaction. Well, guess what? The transaction is over. I don't owe you a thing. Mark is your son. This is his mess to fix and yours. I walked to the door and opened it wide. It's time for you to go. They stood there for a moment, the shock on their faces hardening into that same coldness I remembered from my 18th birthday. They knew they had no power here. They were just 2 people who made a bad bet and lost. Without another word, they turned and walked out of my house and out of my life for good. Closing that door, I didn't feel happy or triumphant. I just felt closure. There was a sadness there for the family I should have had, but that was overshadowed by a deep sense of peace. They didn't break me. In the years since, I've learned that my story, while it feels personal, isn't all that unique. Family estrangement happens more than we talk about, often because people refuse to take accountability. My parents couldn't admit their mistake. They just saw my success as a resource they were entitled to. They taught me that the best revenge isn't loud, it's quiet. It's building a happy, successful life that has absolutely nothing to do with the people who tried to tear you down. My family isn't about blood anymore, it's about choice. The friends who became my family, the mentors who helped me, and the partner I have now who loves me for who I am. Closing that door wasn't revenge, it was self preservation. It was the final word. My worth was never up to them. It was forged in the fire of their rejection, and it is and always will be mine.